Hello everyone, Sientir here with another Rambler, and today, as the first Tuesday of this month, is the next part in my series on the 7 deadly sins. Today is gluttony, which follows alphabetically after envy. So the first thing that's really important to kind of establish is what is gluttony about. Now, we typically think of gluttony, or at least I traditionally have thought of it, in terms of food, being about eating a lot of food, typically. That is kind of overindulging in food and, obesity and all that sort of stuff. But I would kind of argue that there's another way to look at gluttony, which is it's about the act of consumption. Consuming things, not to be confused with the horrendous disease called consumption. So we have a lot of consuming things today. For example, a lot of media that we consume. And gluttony is about overconsumption, is typically how it's portrayed, but what I want to look at is why does gluttony consume? So I did spend some time thinking about this, and my conclusion was that the consuming is to be kind of a pleasure or distraction from something that basically the act of consuming, the enjoyment that's usually derived from that process, covers up something. And what I think that something is a lack of inner peace. Inner peace is kind of a state where we can, in many ways, be content with ourselves or be content with our own company, where we can be in the presence of our own thoughts and be at peace. If you are lacking inner peace, then it's very difficult to be alone with your own thoughts, to be alone with yourself. And that's where you're constantly looking for distraction. And I think that gluttony is trying to cover up that lack of inner peace. And it's trying to do it by consuming things, whether that's food, TV, sex, any sort of thing, movies, books. I think anything can fall into this category. It's about why you're going after the activity. And if you're going after the activity in many regards to cover up pain or this lack of inner peace, to distract yourself from it, then I think that is engaging in it in a gluttonous way. And I just want to say that there's a lot of different things that can drive out inner peace. Often these are going to be things like emotional pain or depression, anxiety, feeling a lack of a sense of control. These are all different sorts of things that can drive out inner peace. And the consumption of gluttony masks this lack of inner peace. It distracts from the pain and it suppresses it. And I think that this is something that happens a lot. Sometimes, I think it's kind of important to be a little bit careful here, but sometimes what we need is something we can really throw ourselves into as a distraction from something that's temporary and awful. That, I think, happens from time to time. And I want to be very careful here because it's important to not say a coping mechanism for a bad situation that is like trying to use something to help cope with a bad situation. I don't think is quite necessarily the same sort of thing. It's a little bit more nuanced than that. And the reason why I say that is there's a difference between trying to drown out what's going on inside of you and drowning out what's going on outside of you. And there's a difference between using something to help you get through the now to when things are going to improve. Or I think the word that I want, or the phrase that I want here, there's something different between having something that helps you through the process of recovery or healing and something that prevents you from even addressing the issue in the first place. So there tends to be a couple of different things that can look very similar. So one of them is when you don't have an inner peace problem, when you have an outer peace problem. This is where you're in a bad life situation, you're in a bad environment. This is where the environment around you is causing you problems, and especially when you're unable to leave that environment for whatever reason. People often do need some sort of coping mechanism then, something that they can turn to, some sort of escape from that so they can de-stress their minds. That's not what I'm talking about. What I'm talking about is using the consuming process to avoid dealing with inner turmoil, to avoid addressing the wounds that are within you. This is different from having something to help you de-stress to get through a very bad situation. It's different from having something to help you get through something. This is about avoiding something. And processing the inner turmoil might even be something that needs to come in steps. So I want to be very clear here and not say if you're engaging in activities to help you get through pain, that's a bad thing. I think it needs to be entered into with open eyes. And as much as is possible, time should be taken to try to process and deal with any sort of inner turmoil. Or as much as is possible, one should be looking for a way to leave a bad situation if that's going to be sort of the best direction to go. But it's very important that we do not turn to distraction when there are actual inner turmoil issues, that we seek help for those to overcome them and heal from them as best as possible, and don't just try to run from them, hide from them, avoid them, and leave ultimately those wounds raw because we never give them a chance to heal. And that's one of the big dangers here with gluttony. Now, to put more of a spiritual angle on it, I do think that there is an aspect of turning to God and looking to Him that can help with this inner turmoil stuff as well. But I know that's not a path everyone's going to take. So I encourage, regardless of what your beliefs may be, if you are consuming things to avoid feeling inner pain, that is not doing you any favors. It's much better to actually address the root causes of those inner pains and to heal from them. But life often has difficulty and difficult moments, and sometimes we just need the ability to be somewhere else. And it's important that people have that opportunity to be able to do that. Now, I would say that there's definitely a lot of times where I think there can be a danger of avoiding, particularly for Christians, I'd aim this part at, that it's very important to turn to God when facing difficult situations first. And maybe, yes, what you do is you spend a lot of time in a combination of prayer and reading, or prayer and watching some show. And maybe God will speak to you through that show. Maybe you're going through that time for something that you can learn from whatever it is that you're consuming, particularly if it's media. I definitely want to warn against some of the dangers that can come from certain types of overconsumption, especially food. But hopefully this talk has helped explore this particular issue, helped explore some of these things, and I hope that people feel encouraged. Anyway, I think that kind of wraps up a lot of what I have to say about gluttony. I think a lot of these 7 deadly sins, because I've done some amount of thinking beforehand to make sure that everything was kind of understood well enough for me to approach them, that they're probably going to be a little bit on the short end, which I don't think is a bad thing. So until next time, everyone, you can contact me directly at sientir@gmail.com. You can like me on Facebook at facebook.com/SientirsRamblers, or you can support me financially at patreon.com/Sientir. Take care, everyone. Bye-bye.